here's your host, Alex Garrett.
All right, well, on Alex Garrett Podcasting, if you're in the Boston area, I want you to know there's a very important event coming up next weekend in honor of flight attendants that gave their lives on 9/11. Yes, flight attendants. We often talk about the first responders. We often talk about those that rushed into the building. But what about the flight attendants that tried to save the plane the best they could? And, of course, Flight 93, we saw the passengers of that plane do whatever they can to down it in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. But the flight attendant angle is something that I really wanted to cover with my next guest, Paul Veneto. Paul, you are a flight attendant, and you've got a very special way to remember the flight attendants 20 years later.
Yes, I'm not a flight attendant at this moment. I was a flight attendant back then, but yep, I absolutely. You know, it's funny when you just mentioned that the passengers. Right away, everybody thinks the passengers try to take the plane back on 93, and that's pretty much my point. That's what I've heard for 20 years, and people don't realize that what flight attendants do is they utilize everything they have on an aircraft, and what that is passengers. We utilize the passengers because as first responders, which they were that morning, they were the first responders of 9/11. All of a sudden, when the pilots are gone, everybody's gone. You know, regular first responders, police and fire, when they're in trouble, they can radio for help, and they know help's coming. The difference here is these flight attendants knew there was no help coming. So they had to utilize everything they had under those conditions. Is extraordinary. It's just mind-boggling to me that they were able to, you know, the gruesomeness of what was going on up there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they were still able to use the phones and call us on the ground and let us know where these terrorists are seated, give us a lot of information. You know, they were overshadowed, and I understand why. Nobody's to blame, the enormity of that day, but the fact is they really were the first responders, and they should have been recognized, and unfortunately they weren't, and that's what I'm doing. And what I'm doing is something that nobody's done before, and so I wanted to get national attention because I thought it was important to reach every one of these crew members, family members, and relatives that live all over this country, their nieces, their nephews, you know.
I mean, this is so special, but let me ask you about this cart itself. I know you're pushing what a flight attendant pushes through the aisles, but is there any decoration? Is there any kind of symbolism on the cart itself as you push it on your journey here? Oh,
absolutely, yes. I already have it. It's already been designed. I have a picture of the towers with a set of wings, flight attendant wings on it with and each 4 flights, American 11, flight United 175, American 77, and United 93 on both sides of the cart. And on top of the cart are the pictures of the crew, United crew members. So, yeah, of course, I'm recognizing the pilots here and the flight attendants here and the flight crews of that day. And they just, you know, it was never done. It wasn't, you know, I don't think it was done. It's just, they were overshadowed. And I knew 5 days after 9/11 that was going to happen. I just knew it. And I was hoping that would change as years went by, but it didn't seem to happen. And nobody's to blame for it. It's just the way it played out. But I think it's time. It's long overdue. These family members, I think they should know that their family member that was on those aircraft as crew members should be recognized as heroes and not just, you know, taken out by terrorists, because, you know, they stood up to these guys that without training, without military training, they stood up to them and they rallied these people and did what they could under those conditions. Is mind-boggling. So
well, let's talk about what the emotional effects are on you, because I know that you have had a lot of mental stress regarding 9/11, regarding the flight attendants since 20 years. So talk about that aspect as well.
Well, after 9/11, I fell into an opiate addiction, and I was prescribed pain medication for my back, and I proceeded on a, you know, opiate addiction. I lasted 10 more years flying, and you know, I know today now what happened to me was I wasn't able to process the whole thing, you know, because I was numbed out. I didn't know that, you know, I didn't know what was going on, but you know, I was living 9/11 every day. I got on the airplane for 10 years. Every time I stepped out of the airplane, I was waiting for it to happen again. And how I held it together is truly a miracle. How I come out of it is truly a miracle, really. that I was able to turn my life around. And so I'm just grateful that, I just happen to be the one that's doing it. That's all. That's all it is. I'm just the one that's doing it, but I'm grateful that I came out of it to be able to do it, because it's been on my mind since the day it happened, that these people should be recognized. And so, I'm just trying to stay focused on what I'm doing. It's something no one's ever done. It's and to me, it's not a big deal. It really isn't. I push beverage carts all over the world up there at 30,000 feet. The only difference here is, there's potholes and there's whatever, cars and buses, and there's no elbows and knees going down the aisle like on an airplane. There's no turbulence, but everybody's just stepped up. I'm amazed at the. I have to recognize Power Forward 25 Foundation. Kevin Stevens, my friend, for him and his sister Kelly Wilson. This wouldn't be possible. I mean, she saw when I spoke with her, I could see looking at her that she knew what I was talking, what I had in my head for 20 years. And she says, "I'm going to help you get this done." She knew I was serious. But for years I had this turmoil in my head over this, and until I got myself clean and on the right track, I just I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful. When I come into Ground Zero on September 11th, I'll be 6 years sober. It's crazy.
That is amazing. Now, Logan Airport also was Ground Zero in the sense that that's where the planes took off. So I have to ask you this. Were you scheduled on any of these flights that were involved in the terror attack?
Well, I was with the crew that left out of the second plane, United 175. That crew there I was with them for 2 months doing that. That was my normal route, Boston to L.A. on flight 175. And September schedule came out, and when I did it, I couldn't hold the weekends off. So I flew out Saturday morning, and I come back Monday night at 8 o'clock, and that crew went out the next morning, Tuesday morning. So it just so happened, that's just the way it played out. I was a little bit less seniority. I couldn't hold the weekends off, and but I knew them all. I flew with them all the time, and there was a lot of those stories, close calls, and people trading out of the trip, and I was just very, very fortunate. But it sent me into my whole life changed, absolutely changed. Never in a million years would I thought my life would go where it went. And but I'm very fortunate, and I'm grateful that I'm here today speaking to you. This is the most important thing I'm doing right now, is this phone call right here.
Well, I appreciate that. But I've got to ask, up until 9/11, tell us about your flight journeys. It sounds like you were, as an all around the world, 30,000 feet above the world, doing the flight attendant's job. What was that like? What was your experience like?
Well, I love that career. I've flown with 5 different airlines. I first started out with all charter airlines until I went to work for United. I started in 1981 with World Airways, and I flew all around the world with them, doing a lot of military contract flights. So I got to see places that normal airlines don't go, because we're bringing military personnel to different parts of the world. Plus a lot of charter stuff, and so it was beautiful. I got to see the world right away. I did a CIA operation with one airline where we went in and rescued the Iraqi Kurds. There's some crazy type of flying that I was fortunate to experience. A little hairy and scary, but I'm grateful for it. I was younger when I was doing it, so I was able to see the world and meet people. I mean, I loved the job, no matter where it was. The thing about it was the people that I worked with. I loved it. I just loved to go to work. And when I worked with there's something different about the average person. I guess you can't understand it. When you're up in an airplane, even though you depend on each other, even though you might have just met each other. A flight attendant will come on in some city that she's based somewhere else, but the minute she steps on that plane, we're like sister and brother. It's just automatic. You have to be, because when something happens, you have to respond real quick. You can't. You depend on each other. So the camaraderie with crew members is really it's something that they say if you become a flight attendant, if you last 2 years, then it's usually a lifetime career. A lot of people
think about the longevity, because unfortunately, flight attendants are in the news a lot more for their blow-ups. They're jumping out of a plane when they're distressed. And you're bringing a whole different angle to what these flight attendants do. So what's it like when you see a flight attendant get a bad name in the press?
When a flight attendant gets a what?
Gets a bad name in the press. Like, what's that like for you?
Well, you know something. I understand. I can believe you. The difference for me is I'm a guy. I can handle myself physically, so I have to sympathize with a lot of the girl flight attendants because the stuff that we put up with is just crazy, you know. But the thing is, I could always anticipate it before it even happened. That was something that I was grateful I was like that. I could see the problem before it happened, and I usually stopped it before it even happened. You know, I mean, that's the key to the whole thing. But what's going on when I see someone that's, I don't know. I never walked in anybody else's shoes. I learned from my own experiences that you can't judge. You know what I mean? I always think of the first time a woman, I sort of had an argument. I was a brand new flight attendant. She wouldn't put her box up underneath the seat. It was blocking everybody, and I told her she couldn't have it there for takeoff. And it was sort of an argument back and forth. You know, I left, I come back down, she was still there. It turns out it was a husband in an urn. And I'll never forget that. That was back in 1982 or something. And I'll never forget that because I didn't know that. I mean, she was in the whatever state of mind she was in. It was a husband and whatever, and it opened my eyes to something. Before you do anything, you don't know what's going on with these people, or anybody. So when I see a flight attendant just getting a bad name for something, I don't know what happened to her earlier in the day. So I don't jump to conclusions. I know what it's like to be put in a spot on an airplane by passengers, and I understand the passengers' frustration. What they go through, trying to come through all the security, everything that, it's not an easy thing today, the thing is that to solve the problem is to solve it before it starts. And I pride myself that I was pretty good at that. I could see it. When someone stepped on an airplane, I knew if there was going to be a problem with them or not. I just knew. So I would attack the person, not attack, but I would stop it before it even started, usually. You know what I mean?
Well, you hear the story recently of someone that tried to hijack a cockpit in L.A., and it's like, are people still trying to pull, stuff off on these planes? And does that mean the flight attendant has to be even more vigilant post 9/11?
Well, something. I can just tell you what's going. First of all, with the pandemic, I sympathize with them to be up there. I give them a lot of credit to be up there flying under those conditions because, that's crazy. But security-wise, there's a lot of things that the public don't know. There just is. And you can't let the public know. And not that I know that stuff, but there is a lot of stuff that, there just is. I mean, it's not, it's not an easy job, put it that way. It's not. I mean, because I'll tell you, on the emergency conditions, anything that I've ever been involved in on an airplane, every single person on that plane looks to me or looks to another crew member for the answer. They don't have to say anything, but what do we do? That's how it goes. That's just how it goes. And to be up there and to have something happen, and everybody looks at you to solve the problem. I feel for a lot of people because, situations are different. They could be whatever. It could be a medical. It could be a physical fight. It could be, there's babies involved. There's a lot of things that go on. But when you're up there, people freeze. People, there's something about when you're up there, people freeze. So it's just, it's not an easy job. People, to be stuck on that middle tube for hours at a time and they don't get much sleep either when you're jumping from one aircraft to the next. The flight attendants are going through the same stress factors that passengers are through security and all that stuff. It's not like the old days. We used to go around security. We could get through. But now we got to
about that because a lot of people now say, well, 9/11, they stripped up of our rights. They've been so invasive. But isn't that invasiveness helping safe travel? And I'm sure that's also changed the flight attendant's job because you have to be more vigilant also on what people bring on the plane now. No, that's kind of policy since 9/11.
Oh yeah, I mean, the whole thing is completely changed. It's not easy. Put it that way. It was a lot. Believe me, after 9/11, it just was never the same. And we used to have fun on the airplanes with passengers. I mean, there was there was a guy that I used to have on my flight all the time, Boston to LA, and I think he was from Boston. I'm not sure. I think his family was, but he was a famous what do you call someone that's quick with the cards and hands and I don't know what you call him, but this guy, after a while I got to know him, he was on the plane, and I would bring him to the back of the plane on a 767. Big galley back there, and I would walk around and get about 6 or 7 people, passengers, ask them to come to the back, and then we'd all stand in a circle, and this guy would do his tricks for us on the plane, and I swear to God, people were missing their wallets and their rings, and it was amazing how this guy did it. He was fabulous, but that's what it was like. I mean, if you could do stuff like that. People, a long flight, 6-7 hours, people, it was nice to be able to do that and to change it up and to, everyone enjoyed it. There was no fear. After 9/11, that all stopped. It all stopped. We couldn't trust anybody.
Paul Veneto, who we're talking to, a flight attendant for many years. Now, I don't know, I'm not going to ask you about mandating vaccines because United, actually, your airline became the first to mandate. I don't mind that, actually. I think that's a good thing. But let's stay on topic here because you had said you were here for 10 years after 9/11. Is that what I heard earlier? Yeah,
I flew from, I think a week after 9/11, it was my first flight. I got back on the aircraft, and I flew for another 10 more years.
And how was that experience? You just said a few minutes ago it changed everything. So what was the experience like for you? How buttoned up did you have to be, so to speak, and how sharp did you have to be as well? I feel like there's a lot more people being sharper on the airplanes after 9/11.
Oh yeah, it was pretty intense. I'll tell you, especially us in Boston that were, where the 2 planes left out of Boston that hit the towers. We were the ones that we noticed that a lot of us were, we didn't know it, but we tried our best. But I can only speak for myself. When I get on the airplane, I couldn't trust anybody. We were hearing different stuff. Now we've got air marshals came on board, so we'd talk with them, and we'd hear different, nobody knew really how they were taking off. There was a lot of stuff going around at first, so it was scary. Rumors were that we're finding box cutters under seat cushions. There was, a lot of different stories over here, so it was terrifying to come back to it. It really was. But we had to do what we had to do. So it was, I really felt, we before 9/11, United, we had, I think, 26,000 flight attendants. After 9/11, we went down to 16,000. Now, that's between the layoffs and people that didn't come back. I didn't blame anybody for not coming back. If I was a woman with kids at home, I wouldn't have came back. I was a single guy.
Was there a lot of other flight attendants that felt the same you did, the same kind of emotional distress, like bond with fellow attendants over that stress and healed each other through it?
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, us in Boston, when we worked together, sure. I mean, that was the only time I felt any peace of mind, is when I was at work, even though it was, go to work, and I was, we had that vigilant feeling all the time. I mean, you had to be on, you couldn't drop a pin on an airplane if I was on it without me knowing about it. I was like a cat. Anything that moved on that airplane, I knew it. And that was just the way it was. I was so vigilant. So when I was off the airplane, I felt alone. I was all alone. But when I was on the airplane, I don't know how to explain it. It was just the way it was. And because it was the only place I knew people understood how I felt. In other words, fellow crew members. So I felt some type of peace just being close to them. But that hypervigilant never changed to me. It was, for 10 years of flying, every single time I was on an airplane, I was waiting for 9/11 to happen again. It was, it's crazy. It's, how I ever survived it, I don't know how I survived it. It really is.
Well, Boston, Boston had their own tragedy at the marathon, and I have to include that in my question here because once that happens in Boston, how did that affect you as well?
Well, it did. It absolutely did. It was almost like not as bad. I don't. I remember it happened, and I felt the emotional feeling like it wasn't as intense. I have to be honest. It wasn't as intense, but it was there. It was like I think I was getting sober at that time, and it wasn't. I guess it was at the time. And sort of in my own way, in my own secret mind, in my own way, I didn't voice it to anybody, but I hated the way those feelings were. Like my skin crawled a little bit, or I don't know how to, but I had this, but it wasn't as overwhelming to the point where I was like a zombie after 9/11. I was like just a walking zombie. When I think back on it, it's amazing. Like, it really is amazing I survived when I survived. Because when I think about it, 10 years is a long time. And, all that flying I did under the condition I was, just, a lot of times
they have this thing called survivor syndrome. Do you feel that also? Do you feel that kind of feeling?
I guess, absolutely. Yeah, Of course, survivor's guilt. Yeah, the thing with me was I wanted revenge. I got to be honest. I wanted revenge, like I can't even tell you. And the thing was, I knew that I was never going to get it. So it was. I had this conflict inside me. Like, I want to pay back for what they did to my friends. And also, I didn't want to give up my career. I said they're not taking my career. So I had this conflict going on. And I knew I would never, ever get relief from revenge. I couldn't get any revenge. Those guys were gone or whatever. I just couldn't get it. So I hated that. It was the turmoil that was going on inside me. I could never, that's how I was for 10 years in the airplane. And I had to mask that. And not many people knew that, but I really did. I was part of the scenes. I know that today. I know that, another thing I realized that I'm starting to get, in other words, all of us hear music. When we hear an old song, it brings back memories of an old girlfriend in high school or whatever. For years, all that music, anytime something would come up, the only thing I thought about is crew members. That's the only thing I ever thought about. A sad song, a happy song, whatever. I went right to the crew members that my mind did. And since recently I'm starting to realize, something, I lost all that stuff because of 9/11. It's weird that I realized that I never, I remember having those moments when I'd hear a song that would remind me of a high school girlfriend. I remember that stuff, but I lost that after 9/11. I did because I'm telling you, even just recently, it's still there, pretty much. I'm getting some relief from it now, I think. But when I hear a song, I still think of them. The crew members. Why I lost that, I have no idea. I have no idea.
Paulie, you just mentioned your friends, so I've got to ask you this. You obviously told a few people, hey, I have this idea. Did you expect Paulie's push to go national like it has?
Well, to be honest with you, I knew deep down in my soul I was going to do this, and I just knew that if I stayed on the right path, that anything is possible. I knew I had to get national coverage. I didn't question how it was going to happen, when it was going to happen, who was going to happen, whatever. I just kept doing what I was doing, and sure enough, thank you God, I was right, because I believe what I'm doing is right. That's why it's gone national, and it's long overdue. I'm just grateful that the people, that I just kept doing the right thing. Because,
God led you to do this too. I feel like you have a lot of faith in you as well.
Say that again?
Do you feel God has led you to do this as well? I think you've got a lot of faith in you from what I've learned for the last 20 minutes.
Well, something, I'll tell you one thing. Something greater than myself, it pulled me out of where I was to be able to do this. There's a million ways I could explain it. I just know that it was a power greater than me, that's for sure. I look at it like my parents looking down at me. It's time. It's time. That's what I kept telling myself. They were telling me, it's time. It's time. You paid enough price. Let's go. It's time. And so I'm grateful for that, for my upbringing. My parents were very influential in my life, where as a kid they instilled stuff in me, and I probably never listened to them until everything they tried to tell me was right, and I never listened to them. But I know now what they were talking about, and so I got to bring it back to them. I really do. And I look up there and I know they're looking down and say, something, you can do this. So
do you feel like you're also spurred on to do this for the love of America? I think anybody who does these type of events, you also love the country you're in, right? I mean, you love America so much that you want these Americans to be honored when the media doesn't really honor them.
Well, no question about it. Absolutely. Of course, I love this country. My father's a World War II Marine. Yeah, they were Americans, those crew members, and you know, of course, yeah. There's going to be a nice big flag on that beverage cart. Trust me, and because this is the country. Everyone wants to be an American. Everyone wants to live here. I mean, I'm so grateful I'm an American. You know, I'm grateful for the military. You know, every guy. I get my father. There were 5 brothers in the military in World War II. All of them made it back, and you know, I'm so proud of them. You know what I mean? It's just I got a picture that I had blown up. All 5 of my father and his 4 brothers, and they end up running into each other in World War II, and a picture of them in the Boston paper. It was crazy, but wow. Yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, of course, these people should be recognized as American heroes. Right? I mean,
I love that line. That is such a unique. You bring such a great perspective to this that not many people are covering. Paul, I got to ask this before I ask about the big fundraiser a week from today, because we're airing this on Saturday actually, and so. Your background. Did you want to be in aviation when you were a kid? Is that where that started? I think it goes way back as a little kid. I think I might have saw something on TV, and I was so intrigued about all these people in this tube going up in the air, and it just it was like a living room to me. I mean, that's pretty cool. I think that's because I never wanted to fly a plane. I could care less how the whole thing works. You know, as long as I know how to turn the coffee pot on an airplane, I'm happy. So that's as technical as I got. But yeah, as a little kid, I wanted to see the world. I wanted to meet different people, and I'm unfortunate that there were no wars going on in my era or whatever. There's no military action going on, so I really didn't have to join the military to do that. I could have, but I didn't have to. But because the opportunity was there to become. I said, why not become a firefighter? I do construction and stuff like that, but I've always enjoyed, just the first airline I was with. I was like, this is, they didn't have to pay me to do this job. I just loved the people I worked with more than anything, and then the places I saw and the people I met all over the world. I mean, it was a dream come true. I'm a guy from a family of 9. You know what I mean? Nobody's in the airline industry. They're all different careers, my brothers and sisters, and I don't know how I ended up. I bring it back to my parents. Whatever you like to, they were supportive of all of us, whatever we wanted to do. So I just happened to be the one that traveled all over the place. And I never got married. The rest of them all married and everything else but me. It was just something about seeing the world. So I'm very fortunate. What's your favorite flight then, if I can ask you? What was your favorite trip to go
on? I have to say, I used to like, I do a vacation travel. A lot of people, they Uber flights out of Boston. I always like that because people are in good moods. There was favorite place to go. I mean, I have to say Italy, even though I'm half Italian, but Italy was just so real to me the first time I went there. It was just like what I thought it would be, like from school, and it was I was in I forget where I was, what part of Italy, but the cats are running underneath the table while they were serving us dinner, and it was just so real. So
that is cool. I'm actually gonna send this interview to a few of my Italian friends now. If they have that you have that connection, because I work with a couple people that actually travel to Italy for work, so that's pretty interesting there.
Well, my family had a wine company called. My father was from Bari, Italy, his family, but they had a wine company out there. I don't know the whole story behind that, but
so Paulie's Push is going to have a big concert a week from tonight on August 14th, and you can buy tickets at eventbrite.com. It will be at the Florian Hall, 55 Howard Street in Boston. 7 to 11. What can we look forward to should they come to that fundraiser next week? It's called Paulie's Push, Never Forget 9/11 Concert and Fundraiser.
Well, I have 2 brothers that are musicians. They're both drummers, and both of their bands are playing. My older brother Peter's band is the Reminiscence, and my younger brother Joe's band is called Self-Esteem. There'll be a lot of my 5 sisters. They get silent auctions and all this, a bunch of stuff going on. I'm sort of staying out of the picture of that because, that's just. I'm just trying to stay focused on pushing this cart, and I'm just grateful that everybody, come together to help me, get this mission accomplished. And so, yeah, it'll be a good time. That'll be really some good music, and there'll be probably some surprises that I don't know about what they're going to do. I have no idea, but there'll be some pretty famous people will be showing up there. So it'll be something for $20. It's definitely worth it, and I hope whoever can make it, we'll look forward to seeing anybody.
100%. Well, we'll see if this New Yorker gets up to Boston. We'll have to see about that. But for now, Paulie, so glad to talk with you, and I do look forward to meeting you somewhere along the road here and connect with you in person, because you got a story, you got a mission, and you're a great person, I could just tell. So I'm going to stay in touch for sure, and then hopefully see you soon on this big mission you've got.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm Alex Garrett, where, of course, we're always adapting, and we will continue to remember 9/11, because 20 years ago changed us all. And being from New York, working right by 9/11, the ground zero is just emotional every day. So I want to highlight it more. But, Paulie, thank you for this mission and for honoring our flight attendants. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate it.
I'm Alex Garrett. We're always adapting. Talk to you soon as well.